Today we are going to work with our air dry clay. Air dry clay is real clay. It's a little bit harder for your hands to work with than something like Play-Doh, but it's really good for your hands to work with the clay. And your hands can get nice and strong if you do it a lot. For this project, you're going to need your ball of clay, your piece of wax paper, a sharp tool for etching into the clay. Toothpicks work really well, but if you don't have toothpicks, like a sharp pencil would work just fine, or anything that has a point that's not too big a point, like maybe a pen could work also, but it will ruin your pen. I put a rolling pin down with a question mark because if you don't have access to a rolling pin, that's okay. You can do things with your hands. And you're going to also need a teeny bit of water, just a small amount of water later on. Okay, so to start out, we need to knead our clay. That means you're going to work the clay with your hands. I recommend that when you work with clay, that you stand up, because working with clay can be a very physical job. So stand up if you can and take your hands and press into it and work it until that ball of clay feels nice and soft in your hand, like it's really been worked. Do this for maybe 3 to 5 minutes. I've been working with mine for a little while. Now, when you're done working your clay, when you're done kneading it like you knead bread dough, then it's time to wedge or womp your clay. Okay, adults, I apologize in advance for what this might be like for you in your home, because it can be noisy. So let me just explain this before we do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to be throwing our clay as hard as we can onto our wax paper that's on your table. Well, here's the thing. If you were throwing a baseball and you were a Major League Baseball pitcher, you wouldn't want to throw this clay just anywhere. You wouldn't want your ball to just fly all around the baseball field. You want it to go straight into the catcher's mitt. Well, that means you want to be sure that it's not going on the floor or flying around in other places. We want it to go straight into the middle of our wax paper. So what you have to do is direct it down there, and we're going to do that about 5 times. The purpose of wedging, or what I call womping the clay, is to get all of the air bubbles out of the clay. Okay, so here I go. I'm going to do it 5 times. Ready? 1, 2. I'm kind of directing it right down there. 3, 4, 5. Good, that should do it. Oh, and it's kind of fun too. Just don't let it go flying off or onto the floor. Okay, when you're done with that, you have some options. Because usually when we're in school, I have a very specific project that the students work on, and that's to make this heart-shaped tray. But because we're not in school, and because you might not have a rolling pin, I'm going to show you a couple different things you could do. If you do have a rolling pin or some kind of a hard cylinder, you could sort of flatten your clay into a disc like I did, just using my hands. I just made it into kind of a disc, and I put it on my wax paper, and standing up and taking the palms of my hands and pressing down, I can roll out my clay like I'm working with cookie dough. And I can roll it in different directions I want to roll it so it's kind of even all over, not really thin on the edges, but kind of the same thickness all over. Now, if I roll it out flat like this, then I could cut out a shape. And I like to use a toothpick as kind of a knife. Let's say I'm cutting out a heart shape. You could use something to trace around also. Oops, I broke my toothpick. Luckily I have more. All right. And I'm just pushing right down to the wax paper. And when I do that, look, I can just pull away the extra clay. So that's one thing that you could do with your clay. And if you did that, now I have a nice flat heart. And I could take my toothpick again, and I could draw all kinds of fun things in here. I'm just going to do a very quick, this is called etching. It's just drawing into the clay. But you notice I'm not going all the way down into the clay, not all the way through to the bottom. I'm just making a line on the top. I want to make it so that I can see it, but not so that it cuts through the clay. I'm just going to make a fun line. And then I would have another design. I could write I love you on there if I wanted to. Anything you want. That's one way you can work with your clay. Suppose it didn't come out the way I wanted it to. I can just mush it all up and knead it together, and I can start over again. Okay, let's try something else we could do with our clay. For this, you might need a tiny bit of water. And when I say a tiny bit of water, I mean a drop or two. Let's see what I mean in a minute. Suppose I want to break my clay into pieces and make smaller balls out of them because I want to make a snowman. You might want to make a little animal or anything else. Okay, I want to make a snowman. So I got a little piece and I'm rolling it in between the palms of my hands. So it's a smaller ball. And I need a medium-sized ball. So I'll make another one. I could roll it around on the table too. And I need a bigger one for the bottom. I don't know if this is really much bigger, but okay, I just want to show you what happens if I have 3 parts. Now, I could do that. You could say, oh, there it is, the snowman. But you know what? When this dries, if I just do this, it's going to fall apart pretty soon because I didn't do what I needed to do to make sure that these pieces stick together. So here's what you need to do if you want to join pieces together. There's different ways to do it. Toothpicks come in handy again. One of the ways you could join it together is stick a toothpick in it. Wow, that's pretty strong. But what if I don't have toothpicks? Then what? Or what if I wanted to put things together in a different way and too thin for toothpicks? Okay, well here's what you do. First of all, you're going to say, where is it going together? Well, it's going together here and here. So I need to rough that up a little bit. That's called scoring. Wherever it's going to go together, I'm going to rough it up a little bit. I'm going to score it. That's one thing to do. Another thing to do, okay, look how much water I got here. I put my finger in the bowl and there's a little bit of water on my finger. I'm going to put a little on each surface that I'm joining together. Then I'm going to take my fingers and pinch it together. I can add a tiny bit of water if I need to, but I don't want to add too much water because the more water I add, the softer this clay is going to get, softer and softer, and pretty soon it won't hold its shape anymore. After a while, you want this to be able to dry. Okay, now I've joined 2 pieces together. If I wanted to add another thing onto that, I'd have to do the same steps again. Roughing up or scoring together where I'm going to add it. Adding a little bit of water to both the parts and pinching them together so that they really, really stay. This would be a pretty strong piece, and there is no toothpick inside of here. But I would have a pretty good snowman. Now, I do like toothpicks when I work with clay because I really could just take my toothpicks and do that, and then I could make a little snowman with that, right? And if I wanted to, I could use a pencil too. And you can just do something like that, and then I'd have a little snowman. Well, I bet you could make something much more interesting than a snow person. You could probably think of all kinds of things to make. Like maybe you could make a little animal, or maybe there's something else you've always wanted to make. I'll show you a couple of pieces. My daughter made this one. It's a little basket. She had to join the handle on either side, so she had to know how to score and add water and pinch together. And she painted it. A long time ago, I made this rose by putting together different pieces and pinching them together, and I got that little rose. And after you make your clay, it's going to take a while to dry. This kind of clay does not go into an oven or a kiln. It just dries in the air. That's why it's called air dry clay. It takes from 1 week to 2 weeks to dry fully. So when you finish making your piece, you can make one big piece or you could make many small pieces. That's up to you using your ball of clay. So when you're done, you can rest them on your wax paper, but you want to put them someplace where they're really safe. If you have younger siblings at home, they might be tempted to look at what you made and touch it, and it could break. So you want to put it maybe up high or somewhere on a shelf or a table where nobody's going to bother it. Nobody's going to touch it. It's just going to sit there for a week to 2 weeks until it is just all nice and dry. And you'll be able to see it get drier and drier as the days go on. When it's all dry, it's finished. It should be, it won't be as strong as a piece that goes into a kiln, which is a really hot oven, but it'll still be a piece that's, you can pick up and be kind of careful with and move it around. Maybe you could give it as a gift to somebody, or maybe just have it for yourself. And it'll be a fun piece to have. If it does break, if someone does happen to really want to touch it and it breaks, don't get too worried. Don't get too worried, because the things that we make now are just mostly for the fun of making them. And hopefully you'll get to make another piece again someday. I do this for at least a couple of years while you're at Ocean View, and hopefully you'll get to work with clay again. So even your drawings and things, it's good to think of them as the good thing is the doing of it and the learning from the doing of it. If it breaks, don't get too upset. However, I hope your piece does turn out really well. And if it does, I would really like to get a picture of it from you and see what you do. I'd love to see your art. If you want to send me a picture, this is my email. It's mernst@ausdk12.org. And you can send me a picture of your work, and I will write back to you. So in the meantime, have a good time working with your clay, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.